Welcome back, designers. In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how you can create a series of 4 portraits in the pop art style. Pop art is an art movement that became popular in the United States in the 1960s, but still remains relevant to this day. It's characterized by big, bright, high saturated colors, by celebrities, and everyday consumer items like you would find in the grocery store. We're going to borrow from the aesthetic of pop artists such as Andy Warhol in the creation of 4 mini portraits. Then we're going to take the 4 mini portraits and put them together into a 4-portrait composite like the examples that you can see here. You'll notice as I flip through the different student examples that these students took pictures of themselves in different poses, sometimes with the aid of props such as toys and different objects. I encourage you to take pictures of yourselves in funny or interesting poses because it will make for a far more engaging portrait overall. You'll also notice that each of these portraits demonstrates a different color scheme. Some portraits demonstrate cool colors, warm colors, complementary colors, or triadic colors. You're going to be expected to show evidence of different color schemes as well. So if you're ready to get started, we're going to go ahead and open our very first image on Photoshop. To get started, I'm going to click New File. I'm going to make sure I select the Print preset, and I'm actually not going to select any of these presets down here. Instead, I'm going to go to my preset details. I'm going to call this one Mini Portrait, and I want to input a width of 5 inches with a height of 5 inches, so it's going to be a perfect square. I'm actually going to go and save this preset so I can go and reuse it multiple times because I'm going to be creating 4 portraits. So if you guys click right over here, this little arrow, I'm going to call this one Mini Portrait Preset. I'm going to click Save, and you guys will see that it's actually going to be added right over here to your Photoshop accounts under Saved, so that next series of portraits you don't have to go and recreate the same measurements. You can literally just click on the preset. By the way, that particular step, it's in your industry certification exam. Let's continue. I'm going to click Create, and now I'm going to go and open my very first picture. You guys will be creating self-portraits. I've created many self-portraits over the years, so instead I'm going to open a picture of my son. So I'm going to hit Command-O or Control-O on a PC, and I have 4 pictures of him that I want to use, of him at the beach primarily. So I'm going to start with this one. Now the first thing I want to do is I actually just want to make a selection of just him. I'm not interested in the beach or the blurry background or anything like that. I'm going to use my good old friend, the Quick Selection tool. You guys remember, if you right-click on tool number 4, Quick Selection is right over here. And I'm going to tell Photoshop to select my subject by going on the options bar and selecting subject. That was pretty quick. You can see Photoshop did a really nice job making a selection of my son. From here, I'm going to flip to my Move tool. Then I'm going to go to Window, Arrange, Tile Vertically, and I'm just going to drag him over. I no longer need the original photo, so I'm going to X that out. Doesn't he look handsome? I'm going to hit Command-T or Control-T on a PC, and I'm just going to resize the picture. Now, technically, you guys don't need to include the entirety of your picture. I probably just want to focus on his head and shoulders. You don't want to have a picture that is floating like this in the middle, because all this negative space just makes it look like a mistake. So you do want to enlarge your photo enough that you're using up the grand majority of the space on your canvas. I'm going to press Enter or click the check mark to save my changes. Before I start adding any colors to my image, I'm actually going to go and add some color to my background. I want to be able to change the colors up as necessary, so I don't want to be stuck with that color forever. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click right over here at the bottom of my Layers panel, and I'm going to select Solid Color from the Adjustments icon. For now, I'm just going to click a random color. And the reason why is because shortly I'm going to be adjusting my image to make it black and white, and I want to be able to tell the difference against a solid color background. I can always change this later. I'm going back to my original image layer. I'm going to call this layer Logan. Then I'm going to go to the image menu at the top of my workspace. I'm going to go to adjustments, and I'm going to select an adjustment called threshold. What this is going to do is it's going to flatten my image. So as you can see, it no longer looks like a three-dimensional person. I want it to look kind of like a bad photocopy, like a bad black and white photocopy. If I drag to the right, you guys will see that all the detail in the image gets lost, and then it just turns into a big black silhouette. If I drag to the left, you guys will see that basically all the detail gets lost, but it turns into a big white silhouette. So you guys want to find a happy medium. You should still be able to tell where your face is. You should be able to tell where your nose is, your eyes, hair, and so forth. You need to adjust it accordingly. I think this is pretty decent. So I'm going to click OK. Next up, I'm actually going to be making different selections of parts of the face. I'm going to be using tool number 3. If I right click on tool number 3, I have several different selection tools. I'm going to use one of the more basic ones, which is called lasso. And the lasso you can think of like if you're using baby scissors to cut out an image for a collage. It is definitely not the most sophisticated of tools. I'm going to be totally frank with you. But with the lasso tool, what I actually want to do is just kind of go and do an outline of Logan's head. And you'll see that as I drag, it creates this line. I want to go and meet it where I started. And when I go and meet the line where I started, I'm going to see the marching ants. The marching ants, of course, tell you that you have a selection. If I press Ctrl J, you guys will see that now that selection is isolated to its own layer. I'm going to call this selection head. I need to make sure I actively click on my original layer called Logan. Okay, so I'm going to make the head invisible. I'm going to go click where it says Logan. And now I'm actually going to go, let me just get rid of this annoying thing. I'm going to go and make a selection of his torso. So I'm going back to the lasso layer, and I'm just going to go and drag around it. So now I have a selection. I know there's a selection because of the marching ants. I'm going to hit Ctrl J like jack-o'-lantern, and you guys will see that will have made a selection of just the shoulders. So I'm double clicking on the layer name and calling it shoulders. I'm making that layer invisible and actively clicking on my Logan layer. Anytime you want to make a new selection, you need to go back to your original layer. Otherwise, it's not going to work because you're on the wrong layer. It'll make sense as you keep going. I think I actually want to go and make a selection of his smile. So I'm just going to go use my lasso, click Ctrl J, and now that itty bitty selection, I'm going to call smile. So technically, I could go and make each of these selections very, very detailed. So if you really, really wanted to, you could go zoom in and do a selection of the eye, or you could go and make a selection of the clothing. For the purposes of this demo, I'm going to keep it very, very simple. In fact, I think I'm just going to make one more, and that's going to be his vest. So when I see the marching ants, I click Ctrl J again, and I call it vest. All right, now it's almost time for me to start colorizing each of these layers in the pop art style. I'm not going to select colors at random. Instead, I want to make sure that my portrait demonstrates a very specific color scheme. To help you figure out what color schemes you're going to use, you guys are going to be using the Canva online color wheel tool. So the cool thing about this tool is that it allows you to create several different color combinations, and it gives you the hex code to every single combination. The first thing you got to do is pick a color. Now, Logan's favorite color is yellow, so of course I'm going to click inside the yellow, maybe make it a little bit warmer, and then it gives me different combinations to make with that yellow. Now this is an extremely high saturated yellow. High saturated means it's an extremely vibrant color. If I wanted to make it look a little bit more like mustard, I could probably go and drag in on the color wheel, and you guys will see that as I keep dragging in, it turns a little bit more brown, like a Dijon mustard or something. If I drag outwards, more sunny yellow. So the more that you drag inside of the color wheel, it looks a little bit less saturated, looks a little bit more muted. So you don't always have to use bright, intense colors if you don't want to. Now Logan loves big sunny yellows, so I'm going to keep it right about over here. Under it, you guys will see a different color combination option. So right now it's set to complementary, which means it is matching the exact same yellow across the color wheel. So for this particular yellow, this blue is the exact opposite. I could use a complementary color scheme, or I could go and check out the other options. So I'm going to try out a monochromatic color scheme. Monochromatic means it's one color and different variations of that color. So you guys will see that it matched kind of like mustard yellow with a slightly lighter sunny yellow. Analogous means they're neighbors on the color wheel. So it's basically showing me different colors that surround that yellow that I started with. So this bright red and this like neon green. Triadic means that it's basically selecting a triangular formation of colors. So 3 colors. So if you guys go and start with the yellow, you'll see that at one point of the triangle is this aqua green, and then at another point of the triangle is this purple. So you guys are going to pick any 4 combinations of color that you want with the Canva color wheel tool. I'm going to actually start out maybe with an analogous color scheme, and maybe I'm going to just move it up to slightly warmer colors like this. And what's cool about it is that I don't have to try to match these colors on Photoshop. I can literally just go and copy these hex codes. I can click on this yellow and you guys will see it's copied. So it's very convenient. I'm actually going to minimize this and have it open as I'm working in Photoshop. So to start with, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to color his head yellow. I'm going to click on the new adjustment layer icon that looks like a circle at the bottom of your layers panel, and I'm going to select solid color again. Instead of selecting a random color on the color wheel, I'm actually going to go and paste that exact same hex code that I got from the Canva color wheel, and I'm going to click OK. Now you might think, well, Mrs. Abaya, I can't actually see the person anymore. What I want to do is I want to insert this yellow into the head only. In fact, let me make these layers invisible so you guys can see exactly what I'm doing. So the yellow should be inside the head only. So in order to insert it inside the head, I'm going to right click on that color field layer and I'm going to select the option that says create clipping mask. And what you guys will see is now this color is clipped neatly inside the image. Now you might say, okay, that looks interesting, but I can't see his eyes, his hair, his mouth, and so forth. So with that same color fill layer selected, what I can do is go right over here to my blend modes and select a different blend mode. Multiply is going to allow me to see through that color to the actual black areas underneath. Let's try it again. I'm going to go back to the Canva color wheel tool, and I think this time I'm actually going to go and copy the hex code for this lime green. I actually might go and apply it to the shoulders. So let me go and make the shoulders visible. I'm clicking on the shoulders layer, then I'm going back down to my new fill and adjustment layer icon, and I'm selecting solid color. Again, instead of selecting a color at random, I'm going to paste in the hex code. Now you might think, well, I don't see the shoulders, everything's green. I have to right click on that color fill, select create clipping mask, and when I select create clipping mask, you guys will see that that color is now going to be inserted neatly inside the selection for the shoulders only. In order for me to see the details in the image, I need to change the blend mode to multiply. Going back to the Canva color wheel tool, I'm going to copy this hex code for the orange, and I think I might just go and apply it to the background. So I'm going to double click on that color fill layer and change it from that red to orange. And that's it. That is how you complete your very first pop art portrait. If you think that you want to change the colors later on to something else, then you'll probably want to go and leave each of these layers intact, Because if I decide I don't like the background and I want it to be, I don't know, purple or something, I do want to have that option available to me. But for now, I think it's kind of cool, and I'm actually going to be ready to move on to my next portrait because I have to do 4 total. What I want to do is take all of these layers. So as you can see, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So that's 11 layers. I want to take all these layers and I want to condense them into one to make my life easier. So when you're ready, you're going to right click in the layers panel and you're going to select flatten image. And when you select flatten image, basically all of the layers that you had before are gone and you flatten them into just one background layer, so it makes it a lot easier for you to move forward. So tell you what I'm going to do. I'm done with my mini portrait. I'm going to start my second one. I'm going to hit Control N. I'm going to go to Saved. And here's my mini portrait preset from before. I'm going to call this one Mini Portrait 2. Click Create. And I'm going to repeat all of the same steps that I demonstrated before. Except this time I'm going to be using a different image. So maybe I want to select this one. Instead, I'm going to select it just as I did before. The selection was a little bit crappy over here, but I'm not stressing out about that. Then I'm going to move my selection over, resize it, and go through all of the motions. Now, before I start adding color, I want to go back to the Canva color wheel tool, and this time I want to select a different color combination. If I start with pink, for example, you guys will see that it's going to give me a different set of analogous colors. But I think right now I actually want to go and do a triadic color scheme so that it's going to give me this triangle formation. For my background, I'm actually going to use that bright blue. Go through the motions of adding the adjustment, then using the threshold adjustment on the image, as I did before. It actually looks kind of mysterious this way when his face is in shadow, so I'm actually going to leave it as is. And as I go through all of the motions here of doing this portrait, I am going to use the colors that are listed here in the triadic color scheme. I'm going to put you in fast motion because you guys know all of the steps now, but you can always go back in the beginning of the video and watch them again if there's something that you missed. Alright, how cool does that look? Now I have 2 portraits to use in my overall pop art portrait. I'm going to literally repeat all of the same steps as before so that I can do a 3rd and a 4th portrait. When I go and do my 3rd and 4th portraits, I'm going to make sure that I use my Canva color wheel tool. And maybe because I started with analogous and triadic color schemes, I can move on to a monochromatic or complementary color scheme for portraits 3 and 4. Stay tuned for part 2 when we go and take our 4 portraits and put them into a composite image. Alright everyone, as you can see, I was very busy creating my 4 mini portraits. Now, as I said earlier, each portrait should demonstrate a very distinct color combination. So this one right over here in my top left demonstrates a monochromatic color scheme, or basically one color and different values of that color. This one demonstrates an analogous color scheme using colors that are neighbors on the color wheel. This one demonstrates a complementary color scheme using colors that are across each other on the color wheel. And this one demonstrates a triadic color scheme using colors that form a triangular formation on the color wheel. Now I'm ready to put all 4 of them together in one composite image. You guys will see that I collapsed all of the layers in each of these. So if you guys look at my if you guys look at my layers panel, you guys will see that all of the layers were collapsed into one easy to work with layer. That's going to be the first step. So if you guys see lots of different layers, you guys would have to right click and select flatten image. Because I already flattened all my layers, I'm ready to move on to the next step. I'm going to hit Command N or Control N on a PC. And in this case, I am not going to be using this preset at all. I'm going to select the print preset. I'm going to call this one composite. And I want a width of 10 inches by a height of 10 inches. And I'm going to click create. This is going to fit 4 of my portraits beautifully, but I want to have the most symmetrical design possible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to utilize my guides so I can split my canvas into 4 quadrants. I'm going to go to the View menu at the top of the workspace. I'm going to select Guides and New Guide. Then I'm going to place a horizontal guide at 5 inches or IN, and then View and New Guide again. And I'm going to place a vertical guide at 5 inches or IN, 5IN. Beautiful. So now it's really just a matter of dragging each of my portraits over in place. I'm going to go to Window, Arrange, and I'm going to select Tile Vertically. Then I'm going to go and drag one over, starting with my monochromatic portrait, then my triadic portrait, then my analogous portrait, and finally my complementary portrait. I no longer need these open, so I'm just going to go and collapse them real quick. All right, perfect. So now it's kind of like playing a puzzle. You want to go and position the portraits to the best of your ability. I'm going to utilize the guides so that they all fit neatly in here. So that doesn't look so bad, but I'm thinking maybe I want these 2 pink ones to be across each other, so I might just go and bring maybe this one down and have this one on the top. The whole idea is to try to create some contrast, try to create an interesting composition, have fun with it. That's the whole point. When you guys are happy with your results, you guys are going to export your final portrait as a PNG formatted image. This will allow us to have a high quality image that we can share on a website, on social media, without any problems whatsoever. To export, we're going to go to File, Export. We're going to select Export As. We're going to leave our format as PNG. For the moment, we are not going to touch any of these settings. You'll learn about them soon enough. We're just going to click the blue export button. I'm going to call this file Final Pop Art Portrait and click Save, and then I'm ready to preview it. All right, you guys, I hope you guys enjoyed that tutorial. I honestly cannot wait to see your pop art portraits. This is one of my favorite projects from the school year. I love to see you guys getting creative, doing different movements, doing different poses, and then seeing you guys colorize your portraits differently. I cannot wait to see them. As I said earlier, hit me up if you have any questions. And for now, peace out.